Good evening and welcome to the latest Ask Me Anything session from OM System. Sorry about that intro. I pressed the intro before I pressed live. We could see David laughing in the background at me. He's got it wrong again, Claire. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're enjoying the weather and the amazing sport that's going on at the moment. We've got a really lovely session tonight about Tele-Macro Photography. But before we start, I would love to introduce you to the team that are here tonight with us. We have David. Good evening, David.
Hey, how you doing?
There you are. How are you doing?
Oh, yeah, pretty good. Oh, it looks a bit weird there. I don't know. Maybe I think I pressed something while I was desperately trying to say, I don't think we're live.
I thought, yeah, that's right. And then I was like, oh, we're not live. And it's 40 seconds.
We're in. We're there,
saved it just in time. Only 40 seconds, though. How are you, David? You doing well?
Yeah, not bad. Not bad. I know a few people have been getting in touch with me. I had to cancel some sessions because I injured myself. But those sessions are going to be coming back on. So, yeah, other than a little bit of an achy wrist, I'm raring to go tonight.
Good. You haven't got to touch any buttons. Well, you might have to touch some buttons if I start.
There'll be clicking. I can manage some clicking. It's fine.
Also, we would like to introduce the wonderful and amazing Tito, who hails from Spain. Hey, Tito.
Hey, Tito.
Hey, hi, David. Good evening, everyone. Nice to be here again. It's a real pleasure. Let's start to learn.
Yay, good to see you. So hope everything is well with you, Tito.
How's the weather here? It's raining.
It's raining. Oh, it's 30 odd degrees here, so we have the sunshine.
Yeah, it's not too cool, but it's raining. It's really wet.
Exactly. Okay. And last but never least is our wonderful technical expert that hails from Czech. It's Tomas. Hey, Tomas, how you doing?
Hey, everyone. Hey, good evening, Thomas. Or actually afternoon or morning. I don't know wherever you are watching from, but good day, basically.
Good. I'd love to see that. We got some We got some people from all over. We do this later in the evening so that we can hopefully catch some of you guys in the US, because maybe you're up and about and it's sort of early afternoon, and it's always good to do the evening sessions. So we've got people from the USA, from London, from Arizona, from Switzerland, excuse me, from Fredericksburg, all over. So, keep your questions. What we want to do is answer any questions on Tele-Macro Photography. Now, let's get straight down to Tele-Macro Photography, right? Because actually, it's almost named incorrectly, isn't it? Because Tele-Macro, it should be called Tele-Close-Up, because macro is one sort of genre and close-up is another genre, isn't it, guys?
Yeah, I think it's it's such a tricky thing because we're fairly relaxed about how we kind of talk about macro and things like that, but there is the purist sector that says it can't be macro unless we're shooting this at a specific reproduction value or greater.
Right.
So tele close up keeps everyone happy, but I think your mind triggers macro when you see flowers and insects.
Also, and I think also in some people's mind, when you fill the screen with something, people automatically assume it's sort of macro, because we do a lot of macro stuff, don't we? We are massively known for our macro photography, so I sort of get it. But Tele-Macro is a really interesting and fabulous way to do photography. And why would you want to do Tele-Macro? Well, of course, the sort of standard thing is you can be a lot further away from your subject without moving it, disturbing it, and without cutting out light. So that's one of the first things. But you also get lovely compression as well when you use those long lenses on the smaller items, don't you? So you can create lovely soft backgrounds, lovely separation between you and your background. So why are OM so good at Tele-Macro? Let's have a look. Now, Tomas has done this amazing little chart of how close up you can get with some of our lenses. Do you want to pop that up on the screen?
Yeah, I will pop it up. One thing which I basically did is that I try to consider myself a photo testing journalist, let's say, because, all the testers, they always do tests of our lenses, our cameras, and so on and so on. So what I did, I took most of our tele lenses starting from the very cheap ones like the 14150 to obviously the most expensive, but the most wonderful one, the white one, 150 to 400. And what I did is I just found a flower on my garden. Don't ask me what flower it is. I have no idea. It's just my wife's flower, but don't ask me what it is. I don't know. But as you can see, the size of the flower itself is around 2.5 to 3 centimeters, which is like 1 inch size, basically. So what I did then is, let me just move my mouse a little. I took every single lens and I started from the ones which make the, let's say, the least magnification to the. Finally, I just lost you. Can you still see me, guys?
We can hear you. I think you went out, but you came back again. You're all good. Yeah.
Okay, great. My connection is probably not good. So basically, this is the 75-300. You probably all know this is a very cheap tele-lens, and from the price point of view, it's one of the most amazing tele-lens. It's very small, very lightweight, but it gives you equivalent of 600 millimeter. So not only, obviously, we are talking tele-macro or tele-close-up today, but also you can use it for really bringing your birds, your animals from very, very far away distances. So this one, and it actually gives you something around 0.18 times magnification, which you can see on this image. If we go farther, then there is the 150 to 600, our basically last lens, which we have introduced in February, I think it was. And basically this lens, mostly, again, you would use for shooting pictures of animals and birds, for birders. Whoever you are, a birding photographer or animal photographer, you probably already have this lens or you are able to buy it, because 150 to 600 is really amazing for that. Obviously, if you have more money, then it would be 150 to 400, but these two lenses are amazing for wildlife, for birding. But as you can see, it's still very, very good for this kind of close-up photography. So this is 150 to 600. Then there is 14150, one of our cheapest universal lenses, I would say, because it's not just a tele lens. As you can see, it goes from 14, so it's very universal focal lens. You can use it for traveling around, for hobby photography, for just about anything. But again, as you can see, also very nice and useful for this type of close-up photography. Then obviously two 4150s. So there is one in a f4 aperture, there is one in 2.8 aperture. The magnification is basically just about the same. It's 0.21 times magnification. And then we go to 300. I mean, to me, one of the sharpest lens we have ever produced. Whoever of you has this lens, you probably know that 300 millimeter is amazing as for the image sharpness, right? So this one, again, very useful for Tele-Macro photography. And the magnification rate of this lens is 0.24 times. So pretty good as well. And now we go to the most expensive on one side, but again, in the same time, to me at least, the best lens. Again, I mean from the zoom point of view, and that's 150 to 400. I have two images because this one is shot at 400 millimeter, and we will see even bigger close-up with 500 millimeter, because you know that this lens has a built-in teleconverter. So 150 to 400, almost the last one I tested, but also 100 to 400. Which is like, again, price-wise, it's much more cheaper than the 150 400 I just showed you. But still, 100 to 400 gives you this kind of amazing magnification. It actually gives you 0.29, so almost 0.3 times magnification. And then basically the biggest one, obviously, is 150 400 combined with the built-in converter, which makes it 500 millimeter altogether. And oh, sorry, I forgot. I've got this slide as well. One great feature which you can use not only with macro lenses, which is like 30 millimeter, 60, 90 millimeter, you know, all these macro lenses, but all the amazing features of our cameras used together with our lenses, in this case also with tele lenses, is the focus stacking. You know that there is focus bracketing, where you can shoot almost 1,000 images, then stack them together in the computer. But our cameras can actually stack images up to 15. If you are using OM1 cameras, up to 15 images, and you stack them directly in the camera. So we have no hassle with stacking it together in the PC, but because the camera does it for you. So basically, this is 4150, 2.8, the Pro lens. Obviously, I closed the aperture to 8.0 so that the depth of field is slightly bigger, and it's focus stacked, but you can still see what it gives you. The background is still very nicely blurred, even though the flower itself is all perfectly sharp. And last but not least, I wanted to show you the all images I just showed you all together. So from the 75 to 300, all the way up to 150 to 400, which is right bottom corner. And here you can see the magnification of our telelenses. So, and as I just remind you that the size of the flower is roughly 1 inch. So you can see that the very last image on the right bottom corner covers basically from right to left is around 2 inches. So this is the biggest magnification you can achieve with our telelenses.
It's pretty amazing to see the range, isn't it? It's pretty good to see some of those lenses working in action in that way, isn't it? I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to jump into a couple of questions before we get into things like close-up. Before we get into close-up things, I'm going to put this one up from Chuck. Chuck says, is it possible to recommend topics for these technical Ask Me Anything sessions? Absolutely, it's okay to recommend. If you have any suggestions, we do try and build a schedule, obviously, because the guys like to prep and get some things ready. So, but always good to have your suggestions. Just pop them in the chat. And, you know, if it's something that we can do or something, yeah, absolutely. Or if it's maybe something that we haven't even thought of, because there are a lot of topics to cover. And obviously we want to always keep it fresh. So yes, is the answer, Chuck. If you want to, the answer is yes.
How's Chuck going to let us know what Chuck wants, though?
Put it in
What's the best way?
Yeah.
What is the best way to tell us what you want to see? Put it in the comments.
Put it in the comments. Exactly. So, Chuck, the answer is yes, that our door is open to you. I'm going to throw this one out of here from Charlie. Which is your favorite lens for Tele-Macro? Well, I'm going to start with this one because I do love the 4150-2.8 full butterflies when I'm laying down in the grass and I want to sort of shoot low and slow, like low and into the grass. For me, it's the 4150-2.8. What about you, David? What's your choice?
Yeah, do you know what? I mean, I'd love to give you another lens, but it's the same one. It's the one that I've got set up next to me. It's the 4150-2.8, that both with or without the MC22 times converter as well, because that combination of converter on that lens it really is, you know, it's a really high performer. So yeah, same as you, 4250 f2.8 Pro, sometimes with an MC20 on the back as well, and because there's no shift in the working distance either, you know, when you add that teleconverter, so you can still stay same distance and then get even closer. What
about you, Tito? What's your favorite?
Yeah, I always love the 40 to 150 million lens, but I was going to say the same, but no, my heart is with the 300 million, the 150 to 400 millimeter lens, because they are longer. But you know, when we talk about the depth of field, we talk about the macro or close-up shooting. The distance to the subject is key, not just the aperture, not just the focal length, but also the distance to the subject. And let me show you. I'm going to show you something. Yeah. This is done with the 150 to 400 mils. And Tomas has pointed out that it's important in our case, in our system, the minimal distance, focusing distance is great because we can go outside. We are talking about macro in the field, because in the debate of what's macro, what's not macro, what's close up, what's stream macro, once you have one by one magnification from the sensor to the subject, is considered as macro. From that distance, from that magnification factor, macro starts. Before that is considered close-up photography, and we can go 4 times, 8 times, 10 times. That's considered extreme macro. We're talking about macro in the field. That means that you can go there, you can be hiking in the mountain looking for birds, looking for bear, looking for wolves, and you see insects, you see flowers, and you can use the telelenses to shoot close-up images. This is 140 to 400 mils lens. I use an extension tube, not a converter. I use an extension tube, which means that the minimum focal distance is closer, so I get more magnification, and it's not macro, but it's almost macro.
I love it. And
It's
is
a
that
great
stacked
shot.
or is that a single image?
Yeah, and also, Claire, if you go, let me go to next one.
Sure.
Same day, and you can recreate, you can enjoy. You go to lay in the grass, looking for light, looking for bokeh, looking for all of those things. Did you see the spider net, the lines?
No, it's beautiful, isn't it? Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah.
Very, very
Yeah,
faint, but I can see it.
Yeah, this is a spider
look.
net.
Yeah, beautiful.
And this is the thing about using these telephoto macros is that we get this compression that really blows that background a mile away, doesn't it? It's just pushing everything together. So nice.
Right. Okay. Well, Charlie, we hope. Oh no, Thomas, I haven't asked you what's your favourite tele lens. Is it anything other than the 4150?
40-150.
I don't want to repeat all of you, but the truth is,
you cannot repeat. You can choose a different one.
I mean, obviously, from the technicality point of view, I would choose 150 to 400, with the biggest magnification, obviously.
Right.
But from the practical use, I would rather still stick with my very favorite 40 to 150 to 8, as you mentioned, all of it. So basically, it's really an amazing lens.
Have we all been told that we're overstocked in the warehouse?
I know. I was going to say.
Everyone's going to say, "Are you trying to sell a load off or something?" We're not. We genuinely love that lens.
Is it on cashback by any chance? Yes, it is, but that's not why we're.
Oh, yeah, it is, isn't it?
But actually, it doesn't need to be the 40-150 2.8. It can still be. Let me just come back to the slides, to the images. It can still be the version with aperture f4, because if I just go back, where was it? 40-150 2.8. No, sorry, one more back, and 40-150 4.0. The magnification is exactly the same of these two 40-150 lenses. Right. Although the f4 aperture one is much lighter, much smaller, so much easier to carry around. Obviously, the background is not that blurred. On the other hand, if you look at this image, it's very nicely blurred still.
Yeah.
So, if you want to have really tiny package, tiny lens, or if you are traveling, going to the mountains, then go for the double set, which is 12-45 f4 and 40-150 f4. And you are set, you are done. You might, obviously, if you are in the mountains, you want to take like very wide angle pictures, then obviously I would still recommend 8-25, for example, to have basically the whole set, the triangle of f4 lenses, which we are producing in the Pro version. But this one, again, it gives you very nice close-up. To me, it's maybe even slightly better if you want to have slightly bigger depth of field, which in this case, in the case of this flower, is maybe better than with 2.8, because with 2.8, only the flower, the red one, or what was the color, the pink one, is in focus, while the flower in the back, like 4 centimeters behind it, is already blurred. So to me, this one is like more usable.
Super. So before we get on to close-ups, which I definitely want to talk about in 1 second, I'm just going to pop up a question from Andrew Adams. It's not quite tele-macro, but it is in the macro genre. So we're going to let it through the door this time. And it says, can I ask why we only have 2 extension tubes with the OMSYSTEM cameras? I use them with the 300 f4 and the 40-150 2.8, but my other systems, they have 3 tubes. Who wants to take this? David, you're our macro king.
So obviously this is, I think that Andrew's referencing the teleconverters rather than extension tubes. If you get extension tubes, so let's explain the difference. Basically, the teleconverters are magnifying the focal length, doubling it or timesing it by 1.4. Extension tubes are increasing the distance between the rear element and the sensor plane. So they're doing two different things. So I think Andrew's talking about the fact that we've got two teleconverters, a 1.4 and a 2 times, and that some other systems have three levels of magnification.
I think he's talking about the actual tubes, you know, like
when I bought
my, because you know, sometimes
because I have an extension set that is 3 tubes. Yeah.
So have I.
I've got 3.
Yeah, I have as well. I bought the Kenko ones because OM don't make their own. I bought the Kenko ones, and
it's the Kenko triple set.
So you definitely can get a set of 3, right? Yeah.
Yeah, no, you can. So the thing is, I think what happens is that you can buy, like, there's a set produced by a company called Mike. They only come in in 2s, and then the Kenko set comes in 3s. But the difference between the Mike set, which you'll buy for maybe, you know, £25 euros, and then the Kenko, which is like 100 to 150 pounds or euros or whatever. So there's a huge difference between the cost. Yeah. But if we are talking about extension tubes, I mean, ultimately you can buy 3 sets of 3, and if you bought 2 sets of 3, you could put them all together and just go crazy. But it'd just be.
I mean,
you can put as many on as you want, but what you get out of it will be, you know, bonkers, really.
Well, I mean, God knows what your f-stop will be.
I think I put 3 tubes on the 300mm f4 once, and it reduced my infinity. The infinity focusing goes away. You can't focus on infinity. I think the furthest I could focus away was about 12 centimeters beyond the normal point of working distance.
Yeah. Right.
So like that would be 1.42 meters was the maximum it would focus at. It wouldn't focus any further away. So that's the damage it does on the flip side.
Yeah. It's all definitely trial and error with extension tubes, isn't it? Because you know what you might want, might need 1, might need 2, might need 3. But I love extension tubes. They do take you into that depth of unknown as to where the focus is going to finish. Right. It's quite fun.
But you can definitely get them in 3s.
You can definitely get them in 3s, Andrew, without a doubt. Yeah. Okay, let's have a look what we've got here. This is another macro question, but it is Tele-Macro, so we're going to let some macro question in. Nap says, does the 60mm macro lens have a shallower depth of field than the ones you tested? Thomas, well, you've done the test, so talk to us about depth of field.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because 60mm macro lens is a real macro lens. So basically, the depth of field of 60mm macro can be less than 1 millimeter, right? So I don't know in English how to say smaller particles of 1 millimeter, but it really is like less than 1 millimeter because it has the 1-to-1 enlargement. How we call it, magnification, 1-to-1 magnification ratio. So basically, it's totally different. What I could show you is very, very quickly. If I just quickly find it, I do have one image here somewhere. Yeah, this is it. Let me just put it on the screen. And here we go. It's not the biggest magnification, but this is a shot of the same flower, of exactly the same flower, which you have seen. Shot with 90mm, right? But it's still not the biggest magnification. It's 1-to-1. So basically, this is how it would look like with the 60mm macro lens.
Yeah.
And if you compare it to the size of the flower to the previous images, these are the images shot with telelenses. And if I used macro lens, which was the 90mm, then this is the detail. So and obviously the depth of field is totally much smaller with any macro lens you would use. If it's 30mm, 60, 90mm, it doesn't really matter, but it's very, very small.
Cool.
And that is the reason why I also mentioned the stacking, because in that case, you would want to use the stacking. Either with flash, as I think Martin said. I don't even know, Tito, if you said it when we are live or prior to that. Maybe I'm talking about using flash photography, which nobody heard about, but you can actually go ahead and tell us something about the using flash.
Do it,
yeah, okay. Okay, this image is from yesterday. I did it with the 90 mils. I was working. One of the most important things for our system, one of the key benefits for us is you take the camera, you take the lens, and you go out to work to see what happens. And I saw a very small yellow point in the grass, in the forest, and it was a spider eating a bee. So I did this image. This image has no flash, but I did a couple of them. Let me show you the next one. Different point of view where you can see the spider, the profile of the spider and the bee. And 10 minutes later, when I think when the spider had enough, the spider released the bee fell down and stopped here in the flower. So it's died. It's dead. It's not alive. And in this image is taking, I had time and I was taking with the flash. I had the FL700 flash with a diffuser. And this is 5 images focus stacking with the 90 mils. Because the 90 mil, as Tomas says, 90 mil it has a really shallow depth of field. So I needed an focus stacking in order to get some detail, some depth of field. If you see here, let me magnify the detail. It's absolutely, and also this is not the highest resolution image, but you can see, you can appreciate the detail with the 90 mil.
It's amazing. So while we're on sort of the subject of flash, why don't we cover off like distances? Because obviously if you've got a 300 mil on your camera and you're trying to use flash, then there are obviously limitations for distance, right? David?
Yeah, so flash is a really funny thing because it depends what your overall objective is to try and do with the flash. Is the flash there to light the subject alone? Is it there to light the subject in the background? More often than not, if you're shooting macro or telemacro close-up, you're just going to be wanting to light the subject. And when you're using a macro lens, you're very close to it anyway. So you can use minimal flash, small power, little amounts of power. If you're going over further distances, you need to start thinking about things like the inverse square law, which teaches us how far light can travel before it gets too weak to be visible wherever it lands. And that's something that can be quite it's a very simple rule to think about, but you do have to take that into consideration, because when light travels, it doesn't travel in a straight line infinitely. As far as it wants to go, it travels at a certain power and then it dies off and it gets weaker and weaker. So yeah, if you're going to use the 300 millimeter to get a shot of something at 1.3 meters away, is the flash you've got going to be powerful enough? Is it going to are you going to get a shadow cast from the lens, maybe because of the size of the lens? You have to take all those things into consideration. So it's a bit of a mixed bag depending on what you want to do, I think. But you can also use, sorry, Tito, you can also use the STF8 on the front of some of the longer lenses. And then the flash is in front of the lens. So it's not really going to block itself, but that doesn't work for all of them. That only really works up to, there are ways to do it, but if you want to talk officially, anything with a 62 millimeter thread on the front can handle that front mounted flash. Yeah. What do you think, guys?
There might be also there might be also the use of the external flash like FL700, which has the built-in radio receiver and transmitter.
Yeah.
Together with our transmitter, which you just put into the hot shoe, and basically with the tele lenses, you would be able to put the FL700 just close to your subject wherever it is. If it's 1-2 meters from you, it doesn't really matter because it works up to, I think, 30-meter distance. So you can actually trigger the flash remotely this way. Obviously,
even if you didn't have the transmitter, maybe you had an FL LM3, the little kit flashes.
Use that
and you can use the optical trigger version of that, as long as it's within line of sight to the sensor on the flash. Yeah, that's another good way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say regarding the flash, as David said, because we have the one of the benefits of our sensor, one of the benefits of our sensor size and equipment size is that with same aperture, we have more depth of field. That means that we do not need more flash power than other systems. So we can recycle the flash much faster. And the image I have shown before is 5 images, handheld, flash, and also the stabilization is key.
Yeah.
So there is a combination of benefit. There is a combination of technologies that makes OMSYSTEM as a unique proposal for macro photography.
So there's a couple of other things we should probably touch on whilst talking about flash and macro, because there are some things that kind of go hand in hand with flash plus macro photography, and that is usually focus stacking or focus bracketing.
Yes, and we got a few questions in there as well, so I think it's a good chance to cover it.
Yeah, they kind of it does explode as a topic in terms of what we need to do, because the biggest one is I'm using flash doing focus stacking. Why is the flash not going off? So on some models, you're going to need to tell it that it's okay to fire a flash with silent shutter, and people forget that stacking and bracketing, they're silent shutter modes or electronic shutter modes. And then we also need to think about the limitations that we have. There are different limitations per model. So things like a slower shutter speed maximum, either a 50th or 100th, depending on which model you're using. Things like that. So it's pretty expansive, and I think we touched on it when we did the macro AMA. So there's probably more information that we've got back in the archives on that specifically, but there's huge amounts to think about when you start using flash.
And absolutely, if you're stacking a shot of 15 images and you want the flash to fire 15 times, then the answer is yes, it can do it. You just got, as David says, you've got to make sure in the EM range that you've switched it on in the menu, because as I said, it's in silent shooting modes, and you have to allow it to allow flash while shooting with electronic shutter. And now with the OM1, you don't have to do that, do you? It's automatic. So again,
it's very much an automatic thing now.
Yeah, it's another little upgrade that you may not be aware of with the OM series over the EM series, was that we actually got rid of that, because it was a little bit confusing, to be fair. I know so many people said, oh no, you can't use it with electronic shutters. Like, yeah, you can. So I hope that helps. Okay, we're going to pop up a few questions, because there's a few here that we have gone through. And so, okay, this is quite an interesting one. So let's just, David says, what do you suggest if I can't afford the pro versions of the lenses? So I think Thomas showed you a really, really good option. Like, if you can't afford the 40-150 Pro, which we always rave about, then you've got the 40-150 f4 Pro, which is still the same focal length. You're only dropping a stop, and it's a tiny, tiny lens, and it's a cracker. I mean, it really is a fabulous lens, super, super sharp. Great reach for the price. It doesn't take the converters, but again, we do have a range of f4s in a lot of our pro lenses now. So there are other options, and even the 75-300, which is at that sort of other end of the cost scale. Again, that's quite a good little buy. The one you showed, Thomas, with the flower, still pin sharp, and still does a good job if you're on a budget. David, what do you think, guys?
Yeah, and I don't know if David Erickson is talking about only pro lenses, tele lenses, or also macro lenses. 30 and 60 millimeters lenses are not pro. The 90 millimeters is the only pro lens in this in this macro family lenses. So, and also 75, as you said, 75 to 300 mils is great for close up shootings. If you don't have a big budget, or you don't want to invest much money. So I think the 60 mils is one of the my favorite lenses in this case, because of course 150 to 400 is the the jewel of the crown. I don't know how it's in English. And the 90 millimeters lens, macro lens, is unique in the world, unique in the market. There is no similar lens in any other system. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
But if you want something no pro, 60 mil lens is absolutely amazing.
Okay.
For macro.
I'm going to get through some questions quite quickly. So, Tomas, this is to you. This is to you.
Sorry.
No, don't worry, Tomas.
Yes,
would you advise a tripod?
I mean, I do have an amazing tripod. I do have an amazing macro setup on the ball head, which you can just swivel around very like with microscopic, movements, all these kind of things. So if you would be shooting like really macro photography with 60 or 90, especially 90 millimeter lens, doing the maximum magnification, then I would say, yes, use the tripod. On the other hand, you don't have to, because I mean, especially in the 90 millimeter lens, there is image stabilization and works very, very well. So again, if you are doing stacking and if you are doing even autofocus bracketing, not just stacking is pretty fast because you can do up to 15 images only in brackets only. So it goes within a second. 1 second, you have got 15 images. So basically, you can handheld very easily 1 second. But if you are shooting very tiny detail, for example, head of a fly or something like that, then you want to stack it with maybe 50 or 100 images or something like that. And then obviously it takes longer time. And then in these cases, you want to do the focus bracketing from the tripod. Definitely, yes.
Yeah.
So there are different situations. I mean,
yeah.
I
was going to say that.
Cases...
It depends on your angle. It depends on how, if you've got a really, really long zoom, again, hand holding a longer zoom stack is much harder than a smaller zoom, a smaller macro lens. So it is also about your ability as well, isn't it? How much sort of core strength you've got, whether you're older, younger, whether you've got bad knees. It does depend on a lot of those things. But yes, you should be able to handhold a focus stack. It is completely possible. Hundreds of thousands of people do it, but it does depend on your circumstances. You were going to say, Tito?
Yeah, no, I was going to show a couple of images done shot with the 60 mils. All of them are handheld. Yeah, just to give you an idea. I'm so sorry. Let's second.
Perfect. Look at that. That's beautiful, isn't it?
Just to give you an idea, because macro. Yeah, most of the people or many people, when we talk about macro, we are looking for big eyes, the insects, the flies, the bees, but also you can frame the insects, we can frame the wildlife, the small wildlife in the environment, and you can use the macro not to get the extreme macro or 1 or times or 2 times magnification factor. You can also enjoy this close up with the macros. This is not macro, extreme macro. This is it's not 1-to-1, but you can enjoy it. And all of them are handheld images.
And which lens? Sorry.
60 mils is macro.
Okay, 60. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's get back onto the Tele-Macro subject. Now let's talk. I've jumped a couple of questions. I mean, Jason Fry says, having just bought the 40-150, this is comforting, which is always good because he's bought our favorite lens. But I wanted to look at this question. Let's talk about close focusing distances. Again, this is all part of the Tele-Macro option, right? So, I've sat there waiting for ospreys to come down, fly, pick up the fish and fly away. And what generally they only dive once or twice a day. So what do you do for the rest of the day? You've got your long lenses on, and actually what you can do is you can take pictures very, very close, even though and without having to change lenses. So Tomas, let's have a look at that chart you've got with the close focusing distances.
I think it's 15. Unfortunately, this is the only lens, the 12-100, which I didn't have yesterday available for the test.
Okay, I tell you, it's 15 centimeters.
15 centimeters.
Yeah.
That is crazy, right? 15 centimeters. Yeah. That's how close you can go on a lens that is an equivalent in 35mm terms for a 24-200. It's just unbelievable. So let's have a look at the other close focusing distances that you've got, Tomas, because you've got a chart with all of them.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's
have a quick look.
Quickly,
so we know the 40 to 150 2.8 is 40 centimeters, right?
Let's go here. Yeah, this is basically it. I mean, the middle column is the magnification, the maximum magnification of the telelens, and the right column is basically the distance, the minimum focusing distance from which you can focus. Yeah. So as I said, unfortunately, you cannot see the 12 to 100 there because I didn't have it available yesterday. But yeah, this is it.
Yeah, I mean, and this is just incredible, isn't it?
Sorry.
No,
I was going to say, Claire, that I was going to say that in this case, 40. That's the reason why all of us love the 40 to 150 f2.8 is 70 centimeters close distance. The focus is minimal focus distance, and also if you use the converter, correct me if I'm wrong, David, but you keep the minimal focusing distance, so you have 70 centimeters to the subject from the sensor to the subject. It's absolutely the key.
It's just such an all-rounder, that lens. It really is.
Well, I think this is just a really good example of why the Micro Four Thirds sensor setup works so well for close-up subject matter. You know, this is what we can achieve with these lenses and get really, really close. I know some people get a bit confused sometimes, though, with focusing distance and working distances as well. So if people start to measure these, they got to remember that we talk about focusing distance being from the sensor plane, not from the front of the lens, you know.
Yeah.
So, but it still makes it even less than that as well. And yeah, adding a converter and not losing and not having to change your focusing distance is brilliant. Again, for the 40 to 150, it's just an unbelievable lens all around for that kind of situation.
Yeah, let me share another important thing regarding the telelenses, because the 100 to 400 mils and the 100 to 150 to 600 mils, the minimal distance focusing distance is different from the wide angle from the tele, but the 150 to 400, the wide one, the best one. The price, there is a reason for that.
There's a reason you're going to drop 8K on a lens.
Yeah, it has the same
distance doesn't change.
It doesn't change. Yeah, right. 1.3 full length. Yeah.
Also, we have to mention one thing as we have this chart on, that basically I've been talking about focus stacking, right? But not all of these lenses can actually focus stack. There are two of them. They are the cheapest ones, obviously, the 75 to 300 and 14 to 150, which cannot focus stack, but they can still achieve very nice magnification and nice macros, or let's say close-up shots. Yeah. So don't worry about not being able to focus stack with these lenses, but they are amazing anyhow.
Exactly. Right. Okay. We're going to jump to another question now. Again, Thomas, this is for you because I know you've got some incredible shots of dragonflies. What lens would you use to choose to photograph dragonflies in flight? These shots, I mean, if you can, this is the time to get out. Early morning, dragonflies. The thing about dragonflies is they will land on a leaf, they leave a little bit of spit on the leaf, they'll go off and they'll come back. So you can just wait in that space, wait, and they will come back. Let me tell you, that's what dragonflies do. Look at the incredible bokeh that you can get by using long lenses to get this type. You know, you're not going to frighten the dragonfly because you're not in its shadow, you're not blocking out its lights, you're not, you know, sort of disturbing it. And these are absolutely stunning. Let me take this message off the list. So tell us a bit about this image, Thomas.
Yeah, I mean, this image is actually, they are not my own. I don't want to take it's my own work. It's not. It's the images you are going to see right now are from a local ambassador, Radim Hlavac. I think, let me just put his webpage. This is Radim Hlavac's photography.cz. Unfortunately, webpage is in Czech, but it doesn't matter. You will see the gallery. So go into the gallery, and there's lots of amazing images. And the reason I'm showing this guy is that basically he is showing like 90% of his images with 4150 2.8. So exactly the lens that you, Claire, and you, David, and basically also partially you, Tito, and myself said, this is the most wonderful lens for, let's say, this kind of macro or close-up photography, because it's lightweight, it's easy to carry around, it gives you very wonderful and amazing image sharpness, and it just gives you this type of images. I mean, look at this dragonfly shot flying, I mean, it's amazing.
Beautiful.
Obviously, he is also using this lens, in combination with teleconverters. So many of the images are shot with MC14, but I mean, look at that. And this is something, this was our original discussion at the very beginning, right? We have been discussing what is macro, what is not. I mean, to me, this is macro, even though not technically. I mean, from the technical point of view, we cannot call this macro, but it is something that I cannot really see in such a detail with my own eyes. I need to use a tele lens or macro lens to actually get this type of detail. So to me, this is definitely macro photography.
Yeah, absolutely. And exactly that. I mean, look at that. That's incredible. It's a fly, it's a bee. Normally when you get that close, we say macro, but like you say, it's close. And I love that shot. I love that. It's got such an ethereal quality to it, and it's beautiful. I know it's an ant, but what a beautiful picture of an ant. Who knew?
Yeah,
lovely, absolutely lovely. So give that guy a follow. If you want to put his name in the comments, or his Instagram or his whatever, you can pop it in the comments, which is quite cool. Absolutely, look at that. Looks like he's got bouncing a ball on his head. It's pretty cool, right? So this is all stuff, and this is all shot with the 41-52-8, right?
Yes. All
amazing. You wouldn't think, would you? Okay, wonderful, Stuart. We hope you like those dragonfly shots. Okay, we'll keep scrolling down because there's a lot of questions.
While you're doing that, Claire, as well, just say that obviously in the comments there, I think it's important to let everybody know that we can't answer all the questions, and we do sometimes miss parts of those conversations. It's just us four. There's nobody running the back today.
No, we're just going through it as we can.
So we're sorry if we don't get to your questions. Put them in the comments.
I have one more little tiny advice to all of those who have a camera with subject detection regarding the dragonflies. If you are shooting dragonflies, try to put the airplane mode on, airplane detection, because it actually does work pretty well. Somehow it detects the dragonfly as a plane, and it's much easier for you to take a wonderful, amazing images of flying dragonflies.
I was out on Sunday and I did not even think about that. I was photographing damselflies at our local pond, and I did not even think about putting it on helicopter mode. But you're absolutely right. It's got the shape, right?
It does, yeah.
Who knew? So Stephen says he used the 150-600 last night to capture damselflies and dragonflies, which is good. Okay, let's have another question from Junaid. If we add teleconverter 2 times with 100-400, will it affect the sharpness and quality of the image, Tito?
Yeah, I would say the teleconverter 2 times and 1.4, you will lose some light. You will have 1 EV or 2 EV steps less of light with every lens, with every tele lens. And also, depending on the lens, the 100 to 400 mils, it accepts the converter, but is not so good as the 150 to 400, obviously. So the image, the resulting image is a bit softer, maybe. But this kind of decisions depends on the situation, depends on depending on what you want to get, because sometimes it's better to get the image. It's better to have the image than to refuse or to decline to shoot because you are going to get a softer image. Yeah, it will affect in the sharpness, obviously, but sometimes it's much better to have a bluer image, not so bluer image, but a bit more bluer image than not having the image. It's my advice.
Cool stuff. We're going to jump straight.
In general, it's not possible. Sorry, Claire. Sorry.
No.
I was just about to say that in general, it's not possible that a teleconverter would not affect the image, right? Because you are adding some lens elements. So from the technical point of view, it's just physics. I mean, it's not us. It's like
it's the same as shooting through a window, right? You're adding something else into the scenario.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. And also let me add in addition, if you are going to use filters to protect the lens, if you are spending a lot of money in the lens, spend money in the filter. Don't place plastic filters in the front lens.
I absolutely agree. Good stuff. Right, we're going to steam through a couple more questions so we can try and get a few more done. John Rain says, can you use high-res feature when shooting macro, telemacro? David, over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if your subject is not moving, if it's a flower, the thing you have to remember with high-res is similar to focus stacking, but on the flip side, the sensor is actually moving around. So if the subject moves, you know, if it's got sort of antennae, you might end up with an insect with 12 antennae, you know. But you can use the high-res feature with any of the lenses at any focusing distance. So, and it is really, really good to do that as well. So the advice I would give when you need to find a subject that's going to stay still long enough for this, and high-res only takes it as long as your relative shutter speed. So if you're shooting at anything over 125th of a second, it's going to be quick anyway. If you're shooting at 1/10 of a second, the whole process slows down a little bit. But go out early in the morning when everything's really cold and the insects don't move. You know, when they're not warmed up, they're going to stay still for a long time. You can do a lot of high res, a lot of focus stacking because they're not moving, providing you don't have any environmental movement like wind. But yes, you absolutely can do that. And the time that it takes to take a high res shot is relative to your initial shutter speed. And between 8 and 16 times that initial shutter speed, depending on which mode you use.
Tito, have you got a shot there lined up, which is a high-res tele-macro shot?
Let me show you something. This is a handheld high-res shot with the handheld is 50 megapixels, and this is a crop. Let me show you. This is a crop of that image.
Wow.
Oh,
this is the
JPEG. So the answer, John Rain, is you can definitely use high res when shooting telemacro. I mean, look at the detail in that. That is absolutely stunning, isn't it? Wow.
And this is, don't forget.
Yeah.
Handheld, and this is a portion. This is a crop from this.
Unbelievable. I love it.
Remember the days when we needed bellows setups and things and rails to get a scale on a butterfly with your. I mean, I know you want to get big scales. Yeah, you've got to get into micro photography. But you know, the day's gone where we couldn't get this sort of stuff without a load of kit. It's brilliant.
Exactly.
Yeah, as you said, David, very early in the morning.
Yes, where they're sleepy and quiet.
Yeah, and also, but if you go out when the dew hasn't left, that actually adds to the picture, doesn't it? You know, some of that wet droplet dew is absolutely beautiful for the early morning stuff. So, okay, sorry guys, we're going to push on, straight into another question. Janie, I have the 60mm macro lens on my own one. It's hard to focus. The image keeps moving within the viewfinder, not allowing me to take the photo. Can you provide some advice? Who wants this one? Because you're all macro geniuses.
I think I know what Janie's probably referring to, and it's the hunting that the 60mm macro lens will do if you're too close to something, or if you're too far away and you've limited that lens to work between two certain distances. So if you're using 0.19 to 0.4 limiter on the lens, but you're too close, it's going to hunt, it's going to continuously bring things sort of in and out of focus but never lock onto anything. And that's just the camera and lens telling you that you're not in the right position, you're not at the right distance to do that. If you always think about whatever you're doing with the 60mm, the closest it can focus is 9 centimeters from the front element to your subject. That's the closest it can get. So if you're 7 centimeters away from your subject, it will just hunt. And that sounds like I think what's happening for Janie. Yeah.
Yeah, and the 60mm is a little bit. I mean, obviously the 30 is what.
Don't you dare say bad things about my 60mm.
No, would never do that. I would never do that. But what I would
Love
say
that
is,
lens. Still,
we've got-
even with the 90, I still love that lens.
I do, and many people do. And it's like the 30mm is what I call the run and gun, right? You pop it on, you go, blah, blah, blah. It's a very easy lens to use. The 60, you have to remember the 60 is like 12-year-old technology now. And although it is still absolutely incredible, it's 12 years old, right? You've got that the focus distance limiter on the side. You do have to get used to that. But also, and now the 90 combines the ease of use of the 30 with the amazing focusing of the 60. So there's a price point for everybody in each lens, but they all have their own merits, don't they? You know, and the 90.
And I think that you're right about the age of that lens as well, because if you think back to when the 60mm was released, we were in
EM5.
We were in a position where we were trying to show that this system would work, and it clearly has, because we're years down the line with some great things. But then there is sometimes, and I adore that lens, there is sometimes an element of over-engineering in order to make something look amazing when it doesn't need to, because it does that on its own. So that limiter confuses a lot of people.
Yeah. And Janie, we did do a macro session on Ask Me Anything. It is in the catalogue on the YouTube page, so you can go back and find that specific macro session if you want to. Okay, let's hope that helps. Quick, another question. We got a few more minutes. What extension tubes do you use, Tito?
Usually 16mm. I have 10 and 16.
16. Boom.
Yeah.
So that's it. No more. Just the 16. Done.
Nice and easy.
That.
Yeah, I have two. I have 10 and 16, but I usually use 16mm extension tube. Yeah, from Camco.
I absolutely love that. Okay, let's have a quick look. We've got a few more questions we can go through. Hang on a minute. Let's put this one up. So Andrea Tonioni says, I found the 150 to 600 very difficult to use for my abilities. Respect the 300 f4 Pro. I throw a lot of pictures due to the challenging autofocus. Surely I'm doing something wrong. Do you have any advice? Tomas?
Well, the thing is that 150 to 600 is double the focal length, right? So basically, it again depends on what focal length you are using. You are shooting with 150 to 600, because if you are shooting 600mm, it's double compared to 300mm lens. And obviously 300mm is a fixed focal length. So basically it's from the optical point of view, it's going to be a sharper lens. If you compare 150 to 600 and 300, no discussion, is going to be sharper from the optical sharpness. This is just about as it is. But 150 to 600, you just need to take into consideration one great advantage. And that is if you are shooting, let's say not tiny insects at the moment, but if you are shooting birds or animals, you have a great advantage that you can zoom with this lens, which is, for example, imagine you are sitting somewhere in the tent at the end of the forest, waiting for the deer to come to appear, and then if you have 300mm lens, you cannot move, so you cannot actually forward yourself to closer to the animal or go back, because if you did, then obviously the animal would just run away immediately. While with 150 to 600, you can just zoom in very easily. So there are advantages to any lenses basically that are on the market, that we offer. So 300 has advantage, 150 has different advantage. 300 I would definitely use, for example, for sports, for sport photography. When I'm standing, for example, at the end of the stadium, I find my place, and from that certain distance, I'm going to shoot, for example, athletes, which are specific distance from me. But if it's animal, which will be scared of me, then I need to use the zoom, definitely.
Cool.
So, yeah, different lenses, different approaches.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, I'm going to just make this the last question because we're 8 o'clock. We will go in and answer any of your questions later on because an hour always never seems to be enough. But this lady has asked a couple of times, and I do think it is quite a relevant question. Please discuss your focus techniques. Now, this is quite a broad subject, Sarah, because obviously it depends on whether we're talking about focus stacking, focus bracking, manual focus, autofocus, bird AI, or plain AI, as lots of comments in there, David, and for the plain. So we're all, Thomas, we're all going to be going out using helicopter AI, and somebody's already asked if we're going to do insect AI. I have no clue, but let's discuss focus now. Let's talk about focus in the tele-macro genre, because this is where we are, and this is where we started, and this is where we'll finish. I am lazy and I go autofocus every time. With the 40 to 152.8, I never get a miss. So I'm going to say I'm quite lazy, really. I tend to use minus CAF on the autofocus because I tend to have grass, maybe some movement in the grass if I'm laying down flat and I'm trying to photograph butterflies. So I will turn the CAF sensitivity down a little bit, just to enable the lens and camera to focus on the subject and not anything that might be moving in front of it. That's pretty much my take. Obviously, I'm going to add the AI when it's dragonflies. And so what about you, David? What's your sort of have you got anything autofocus hot tips that we could give Sarah?
Yeah. I mean, obviously for me, I spend most of my macro time when I'm doing close-up macro on macro lenses. But if I'm doing telephoto, then I'm going to be using autofocus again, like you, a lot of the time. However, because that favorite lens of ours, the 40-150 f2.8, has the focus clutch, which you can pull back and immediately you're in that manual focus. That tied with focus peaking for me is the ultimate one. Because if it's telephoto macro, I'm not tracking something, I'm not panning it around unless it's dragonflies, and then we're using the AI anyway. So for me, I'll go onto the manual focus clutch on the 40-150, pull back, and that initiates focus peaking, which I think Sarah also mentioned. Do we use it? And yeah, I definitely use it, usually in red, if it's for things that obviously aren't red, and usually actually with a really strong, the highest peaking level that we can have it on. So that's what I would use for my autofocusing. If I go back to the other side of things where it's true macro, I got to be honest, I'm in manual focus and I'm moving backwards and forwards because I'm close enough to a subject to do that. Because we are running out of time, I just wanted to drop in there that Marius asked about the preset of 1:1 focus ratio on the 60mm not being present on the 90mm macro, but it is. If you remember, that lens also has the focus clutch that you can pull back, and there is a marking inside there that says 1 times and 2 times, and if you set it to that and move backwards and forwards, you're shooting at 1:1.
Exactly.
So yeah, for me, distance, I will use manual focus with peaking for telephoto macro, and close up as manual focus and rocking backwards and forwards.
Perfect. Tito?
Yeah, I'm almost do the same than David, but I'm obsessed with custom modes, and I try to make the most from our system because I do birds, I do wildlife, I do macro, and now today we're talking about micro. And I would like to show you a tip because I usually do work a very similar way than David said. If I need 1:1, I use manual, because if you have 1:1, we had I will show this, the 1:1 in the 60 mils, and when you turn the dial, people still keep the autofocus, so the 1:1 is lost, and you have to work in manual mode. Very quickly, let me show you something, because one of my C modes is specifically for micro, and I use the buttons, the functions in the buttons to confirm depth of field, to confirm focus, and to confirm this. Very quickly, that's 1 minute. If you go to the buttons, I have the focus peaking in the video rack button. I have in the 2 front dials, I have the magnifier and the depth of field. So if I press the focus, now I have, you see, F18. I have used a very, very closed aperture in order to see a big depth of field, okay? If I press the depth of field, because now when you are working, when you are going to shoot, you don't see the real depth of field. If I press the button of the depth of field, I see everything. Do you see this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But also I can use the magnifier and I can move and magnify, and I press again, and I also can check this with the depth of field button. If I go back, the most important thing, if I combine the three functions, if I press the focus picking, I have, you see, this is the depth of field with the focus picking only in the working mode. If I press the depth of field, I see the focus picking in the complete scene, in all of the scenario. I think it's key for me, for macro, even if I'm using single AF or continuous AF, I'm working with the autofocus, but to check, because when I'm going to make some focus checking, it's important for me to see how big or how small is the depth of field for every single shot.
Cool. Tomas, your final thoughts on focus on the longer Tele-Macro. Any tips?
Yeah, you have just said it all, guys. But for me, just one simple advice, and that is, let me just switch to this mode. It's very easy. Always choose the tiny, which is called, I think, single button, right? Because normally you would use, the small one or cross or something like that for shooting big animals. But if you're shooting macro, always choose the tiniest one, which is called single. And then obviously you can move it around as you want to. Yeah, so this is for me very crucial, especially for macro photography.
Good start. Now, wonderful. As I said, I have just quickly gone through the comments. There's lots of stuff about macro photography. We did do macro AMA a few months ago. You can go back into that back catalogue, and there will be lots of answers on differential and all sorts of flash related questions to macro as well. We hope you can go in and dive that and get any answers that you need. Sorry we didn't get round to every question. We never do, because we can tend to veer off a little tiny bit. It's nearly 10 past, and we've had a few people drop off because the football started at 8 o'clock. So thanks, guys, for sticking around. And I'd like to say a special thank you to David, Tito, and Tomas for joining us tonight. We look forward to seeing you next month, as we always do, with a completely different subject. So come with your questions, and we look forward to seeing you again. Take care very, very much. Take care very much. There you go. Take care very much.
Bye, guys.